Welcome to So You Can Heal. I'm Abby Parker, a licensed mental health counselor and therapist at Still Point Consultants.
And I'm Josh. I'm a licensed social worker and a therapist at Still Point Consultants as well.
Josh, I can't tell if I'm excited or nervous today.
Yeah, I'm probably just anxious. Tends to be my go-to. No, I'm kidding. Although I do find that I have a hard time distinguishing between the two.
Yeah, I can't tell the difference in my body a lot of times.
Right.
Like, am I nervous about something? Am I getting worried about something? Or am I just feeling like keyed up or on edge or like anticipating what's next and excited about it?
Yeah. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. Mm-hmm. How to contain the anxiety. But yeah, kind of like to your point, like our bodies, research shows that our bodies react in very similar, if not the exact same way, when we're excited and when we're anxious.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Brene Brown, her new Atlas of the Heart special on HBO Max, she talks about it and she says it's bullshit. That's what research says. And I think for us anxious people, like it's hard for us to even conceive the idea like this is excitement. Ooh. And I think a lot of it comes down to how we've been taught to think about what we're feeling. Because if we feel giddy when we get a new house and we're taught that, oh, well, that giddy feeling is actually anxiety. So now that giddy feeling is always going to be anxious. Yeah, it is anxiety inducing to get a new house and you just got a new house, right? Or whatever the case may be. I'm using that because it's literally what we just did. Uh-huh. And I was talking about how anxious I was the entire time. But yeah, I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, just to give our listeners insight to our previous conversation before recording this, Josh and I were laughing. They were like, oh man, we have to talk about containment today? Do we even know how to do that?
No. Yes and no, right?
Right.
I think containment is one of those things that I can walk you through how to contain and ground and to be in your body, especially in the moment. I find that it can be really difficult to do that by yourself. Or at least I do. Because I find that my mind just keeps going and going and going and going. Whereas if I have someone, okay, let's breathe. Like it gives me something else to focus on or someone else to focus on. So yeah, I do think that, what do we call that when that co-regulation? I find that to be really helpful. And I mean, is it necessary? No. Can we contain by ourselves? Yes.
I think you bring up a fantastic point because when we think about co-regulation, it's usually with someone else. And I also think about it like when I am by myself, what I'm using is from someone else. Like I'm using someone else's words or someone else's meditation or someone else's music to help me regulate.
Yeah, I think that can be really helpful. I think sometimes actually hearing someone else's voice can be grounding in and of itself. I think the thing for me often is I have to feel someone else's energy because if their energy is more grounded, even though they may not be grounded, but more grounded than mine, then I can usually kind of feed off of that groundedness a little bit and pull myself back down.
Yeah, what I hear you calling out is the concept of connectivity.
Yes.
And I can share my perspective on connectivity. I don't think I realized this until much later in life of how significant like my presence is with someone else or how I bring my energy into a space or my emotions or my thoughts and how that impacts someone else.
I completely agree. I think our energy impacts everything around us. And it's one of those things like my partner, Brett, is not a big talker. So when he gets anxious, I always think of Pigpen on Charlie Brown. Like he was scribbles. Like I just feel scribbles. So it's one of those like, what is going on? But yes, like, our energy impacts everything, people and spaces.
And sometimes we don't even know that we're taking on someone else's anxiety.
Oh, yeah, that's taken me a long time to even begin to tap into recognizing what's mine and what's someone else's. And I still don't do it accurately or very well sometimes, because it, depending on what is happening and where I'm at in like my body and in my head, like I absolutely think it's me.
And I don't think you have to be able to distinguish it when you're working with yourself. Like, is this mine or is this someone else's? I think that's more of an advanced skill.
Sure.
And so, regardless of whose it is or where it's coming from, I think you can still work with containment within yourself.
Yeah. Learning to ground whatever it is. I mean, because whether it's yours or whether you're feeling it from someone else, I mean, you're still experiencing it in your body more than likely. And how then do you take that, become present to it, and then also continue what you're doing without that impacting everything else, or at least kind of trumping everything.
What do you think about the concept of befriending your anxiety?
Lies. No. I mean, I think that it's totally possible. Like, I think befriending can make it seem like I'm like best buddies with it and I'm inviting it over for a drink. Because definitely not going to do that. And I think that it's one of those types of friends that when they come over, like you're like, oh yeah, you're here. Yay. So how can I help? Right? And they're usually trying to tell us something. And something usually important. And I think often that friend is really misunderstood. Because I think for even my own story, like my grandmother is highly anxious. My mother is highly anxious. I mean, I remember my grandma tells stories all the time that like I would say I'm anxious or I'm nervous when I was like 4 and 5. Like I was taught how to be anxious from a very young age. So befriending anxiety now is a very different thing because a part of my DNA is saying that friend, you don't trust her. Right? And what I've come to learn and understand is that that friend can be excitement. That friend can be pointing out some really important things that I need to pay attention to. That friend may be trying to, I don't know, just tell me like I need to kind of be aware or more aware. And I think what tends to happen is we become so fixated on one part that we often miss the whole piece. In Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart, she has a psychiatrist kind of talk about anxiety a little bit, and he talks about functional anxiety and dysfunctional anxiety. Functional anxiety, kind of like what I'm explaining a little bit of, is anxiety that kind of helps make you focused and it helps you push forward. It helps you be more detail oriented. I mean, because you want to make sure everything's okay. Dysfunctional anxiety is on the other side where we become so kind of crippled by the overwhelm or the stress and overwhelm of whatever kind of is happening that we are completely not functioning the way that we need to. And I think often we see this befriend anxiety as the dysfunctional piece of anxiety rather than also recognizing that there is a very functional part to her or him, them, that we often miss. So that's my little spin.
What do you mean when you say like that we miss?
For me, I have felt the dysfunctional parts of anxiety since I was little, and that's kind of all that has been pointed out, is when I'm completely overwhelmed or so stressed out at a point to where like it's really hard for me to do anything else other than worry or ruminate or whatever. Where more functional pieces, like I said, I mean, it kind of helps focus, but it's not to the point of not functioning, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
I
answer?
think, yes. And I think like that phrase, like, what am I missing, is really interesting in the concept of befriending anxiety. Because, like, if I think about going to a birthday party and I'm excited about going to this birthday party, but then I start getting anxious about interacting or saying the right thing, or, you know, you notice my beliefs starting to come through, or the story I'm telling myself, probably based in old patterns, old stories, like I'm not good at talking, or I'm not good at asking people how they are, or I'm not good at offering my help, or like whatever story it is. And I miss out on the excitement that I may have started with.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's interesting how excitement can really easily move into anxiety because they're so close, but it's really hard to get anxiety to move into excitement.
So true.
Yeah.
I do find that meeting the anxiety with empathy can be extremely helpful in trying to understand it.
Right. I mean, I think that for me, like when anxiety starts showing up, empathy, yes, I think is super, super important. And I guess like going one deviation further for me is kind of like how we were talking about how anxiety is trying to show us something or teach us something. One of the questions that you had just written down, like, what if I'm ready to grow into something more? What if our anxiety is trying to help us understand areas where we can grow? And who is that it's trying to help me grow into? And what is it that I'm needing to pay attention to in order to grow into those things?
So, Josh, what I'm hearing you say is that when we consider containment for our anxiety, or learning more about our anxiety, or even our excitement, paying attention to our bodies, how we can ground into an awareness of what we're experiencing, thinking, feeling, sensing, doing,
Right.
and how we meet that friend, and possibly in seeking understanding, try to show it empathy, but also really listening to what it is trying to move us through or teach us, so that we can rediscover the excitement or the purpose or whatever we want to be next.
I mean, and sometimes I don't even know if it's conscious of what we want to be. I mean, I think it can be a very subconscious, hidden thing that consciously we've always assumed is this bad thing because, ooh, anxiety, get this person away, right? That friend. And maybe they see things that we can't, or parts of us that we can't, don't want to, or refuse to, or whatever, and are offering opportunities for us to go a little deeper. Things that can help move into those spaces of growing. And I mean, I always say, like, from like wrong, right, or indifferent, like I feel like the best grounding things are like a physical activity, because research has linked like movement to like processing. That's why we have little kids do a lot of play therapy, because movement helps release things. And being creative, because it's tapping into like more like free associative like subconscious areas of the brain so that you can actually move through things. Be a little kid, go play, go have fun, go down a slide or skip rocks or kick rocks, I don't know. And create something, whether that's a painting, a coloring in a coloring book, or making a sandcastle, or baking a cake, drawing a picture, anything, literally anything. Create a story. I think those components can be really, really helpful, helping us to ground enough so that we can begin seeing not only ourselves but our anxiety differently. Yeah. What about you?
One of my favorite things that Beth taught me how to do, or like invited me to have the opportunity to do, was collage, and is collage. And I have found it to be extremely helpful in my own processing, where you just don't think about it. You pull random pictures from whatever magazine or, print-worthy piece of paper, and you put them on a page and you see what comes from it.
Like, after you do that, do you like kind of take in everything and like, what does this mean? Or do you just let it be?
You can do both. And I think depending on the person, at whatever pace you need to set, because it might mean something to you then, or you might look at it a few days later and it can mean something completely different based on your experience.
That's really fun. Yeah, I kind of want to start doing that with people. Word. So, everyone go get a magazine and collage. I think it would be really fun if you shared your collages with us.
I'd be open to that.
Yeah, like on Facebook or something. Like, add it to a comments. Word. Well, Abby, I appreciate you having this conversation around anxiety. Our
Me too.
not so wanted friend, but essential friend.
I learned something from you and our friend anxiety all the time.
Right. Likewise. Likewise. Well, until next time. And as always, feel free to check out our website at www.stillpointhealing.com. You can check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Stillpoint Healing. And you can always email us here at the podcast with any questions at soyoucanheal@stillpointhealing.com. And a invitation to all those listening, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast, because the more rates and reviews and subscriptions we have, the more present we can be for others. And if you already have, many blessings and thanks. Bye.
Bye.